Thanks everyone for joining us today. I appreciate it. We do these webinars once or twice a month. Primarily, they are designed for existing customers. This one is really designed for existing customers. We are well aware that getting freight tables into IMUS is not as easy as it should be. We think we've made the product pretty easy to use, but there's a lot of steps and a lot of things keep changing from the way the freight tables are delivered to fuel surcharges and all those fun things. So we thought it would be a good idea to do a webinar for y'all and show you best practices, and that's start to finish how to use the product. So if you've ever been on one of our webinars before, we always start out with a quick PowerPoint here. A little bit about CSI. I've been around since '92 and sort of consider ourselves the leading provider of add-on products. An add-on product, of course, has a manual, has full-time support, and the product is enhanced over time. We do have consulting wear as well. I'll tell you that. You don't see too much on our website. We're going to change that. But consulting wear is what a lot of people do, where they've made a product for one person and they throw it out there and try and sell it. The lowest number of people using any one of our products is 20, so they're real products. Speaking of which, our original one, iMerge, the easiest, most powerful tool for merging records in IMUS. Meeting closer, as they like to call it in Australia, event closer. iEmail, quick way to email and do full cycle communications with your constituents. iMap, our geolocation tool. Our product, CSI Donate, which used to be called iDonate, now called CSI Donate, single-page online giving solution. Page Filter, our product for modifying public view and RISE pages in ways that IMUS was never intended to. FREs, if you use fundraising, you should have FREs, ledges, change, and edit posted gifts. Our documentation product, iDocument. And of course, the main reason we're here, Freight Rate Importer. So Freight Rate Importer brings in rate tables and shipping zones from FedEx, UPS, and USPS, and if you want, other shipping companies as well. It uses the standard IMUS freight by weight calculations, and unfortunately, those are all based on 3-digit zip codes. As you probably know, at least UPS, excuse me, has some 5-digit zip codes in their freight rate calculations. IMUS just doesn't support those. So Freight Rate Importer can't bring in a 5-digit zip code when IMUS cuts it off at 3. This was probably one of the second most powerful things, the fuel surcharges. These are changed. What they are is they're a percentage multiplier. And instead of shipping companies saying we've got new rates again, so here's a new freight table, they just changed the multiplier. There's always a multiplier. You would think it would start with 0 come January, but it's not. They always have a multiplier from what I've seen. And that multiplier, this is the big shocking news for this webinar, that multiplier changes weekly now, not monthly. Unbelievable. So I'll tell you about some best practices that you might want to consider there as well. The fuel surcharge, you find it online. I typed in UPS fuel surcharge. Another little gotcha here, there used to be a ground and an air for UPS. Now there is a ground, a domestic air, and an international air. And so what you can see here is these are our actual surcharges. You take whatever you just imported as the UPS ground rate, and you multiply everything by 1.055 because it's 5.5% higher for ground, 5.25% higher for international, and for domestic air, and international 7. So what Freight Rate Importer will do is if these do change, it'll undo the previous fuel surcharge and add in the new one. You can see UPS has been staying pretty consistent here, but my best practice that I'm going to come up with now, and it makes a little more sense when we go to our next slide, and that's FedEx. FedEx has their regular surcharge, and then their ground. And you can see it actually, the ground actually switched. It was 3.75, and now it's 3.5. Here's what I'm going to recommend. With these changing weekly, I recommend that you kick your fuel surcharge up by maybe 0.5% to 1%, especially if you're not monitoring it on a weekly basis. I really don't think you need to monitor on a weekly basis. A 0.25% is not going to make or break your organization, and I think you should go higher. So that's just my recommendation for today. If you are shipping with the post office, however, they do not have a fuel surcharge. Everything's subject to change, but so far, no fuel surcharge if you use the post office. So we make some things available to you, and this is all part of your software update fee. We're going to give you the FedEx rates, shipping from USA, the UPS rates from the USA, the post office rates from the USA, and this is a real powerful one, the UPS international zone charts. Those are a pain in the butt to get, and so we put them all into a nice file format. If you've ever tried to download these from the various organizations, they're not easy to find, and they're hard to download, and they require cleanup. So we spend a good week of time cleaning these all up and putting them on our website. We used to put them all out there right on the main page, but now we've made them part of the product download, and I'll show you that in a minute. Normally we update these yearly. If you just so happen to be noticing and see an email that something changed, like the post office has raised the rates, feel free to email us and we'll get the rates updated. There was a little false alarm last year about some rates being upgraded, but they did not have anything to do. They were actually the actual freight for the heavier products. So sometime in January we do update all of these rates. Okay, some best practices here. You need to proactively set up and maintain the following things. We don't know what freight methods your organization supports and or uses, so you need to decide what UPS next day air means to you. Is it the first thing in the morning? Is it the priority of the standard? You get to decide that, and I'll show you that in a minute. You've got to find your local zone chart. The zone chart is different for every shipping zip code. So find where your organization is located, download that zone chart, clean it up, and import. And I'm going to show you that in a minute. You are responsible also for updating fuel surcharges. I wrote they can change monthly, but we'll fix that in the next webinar. It is weekly now. Can't believe it. If you happen to be a Canadian organization, you can bring in the Purolator, which is a big shipping company up in Canada. Those will come in nicely, but we're not going to provide the freight tables for you. And then everything else in IMUS is your responsibility, as I said, the freight methods, any add-on charges, the order module setup. We did have an actual IMUS solution provider call us a couple years ago, and they bought this product for one of their clients, and they said, okay, great, I need you to go ahead and configure IMUS. Well, that's not part of the product, right? The product is freight rate importer, all right? It doesn't defy the laws of IMUS, like I said. It's not going to set up everything for you. It's not going to support the 5-digit zip codes because IMUS doesn't. It can't decide what a commercial or residential address is, so you're going to need to create 2 different shipping methods in IMUS if you want to support that. And it's not going to automatically update fuel surcharges. And then I hate to throw this in there. I told Brittany to soften it. The best we could do is, as I was going back to that story, we are happy to help you with the product. We do not include the setup of IMUS as part of our ongoing support. So let's look at what we would do when we initially run Freight Rate Importer. Okay? So a couple different things. So I've gone and I've downloaded the download. I'll show you what it looks like. It looks a little bit like this. And we're going to, this should be updated by the end of this call. We've made a couple tweaks to the manual, and we've made this a little clearer. It says 2017 rates, but it actually includes our international zones as well. Okay? So when you do download the product, you'll see there's the product, the user guide, all of these are going to self-install, but these are our rates. So after I've installed the product, I'm going to want these rates in international zones. And that's something they're updating right now for our website. That will say 2017 rates in international zones. I've gone and exported all of those. I've thrown them out here into my little demo folder, and I put them in 2017 rates. So I've got my international zones, my FedEx rates, my UPS rates, and my USPS tables as well. So I've got all those. I've also gone in IMIS per the manual, and I've set up my shipping methods. Here, the shipping methods can only be so long. I believe it's 10 characters, so you want to get a little creative. Here's the ones we recommend. UPS ground. Now, granted, I might create a UPS ground commercial and a UPS ground residential, but I'm going to need to fit that within 10 characters. My UPS second day, next day saver, standard Canada, standard Mexico, worldwide express, and worldwide expedited. All right. So I've gone and made these ship methods. This is where you decide. You know, also people go, can you please import all our freight rates? Of course we can. Tell us what shipping methods you use. And I'm not joking when I say this. Someone said, we use all of them. Well, that did not help us, right? What does all of them mean? So really it's up to your organization. What methods do you ship by? And you need to decide that. And then you need to set up this ship method lookup table. All of this, by the way, is in the manual, which will automatically be on your computer when you have finished installing, okay? You will see there it is. There's a nice user guide, and it will be on there. And you can go in there, and it tells you all these fun steps. This is the one we're updating right now. It'll be out there because there was a minor bug in this one. Okay, so we're back. I'm going to run the product for the first time, and it looks like this. And the reason it looks like this is we sort of thought, well, you probably should do things in order. And the first thing you need is your US and Canada zones. Well, if you remember from earlier, we can't give you the zones for US. We can give you international, but not US. So what I recommend you do is you go out to Google, and this is the manual too. We don't put the URL in because darn UPS constantly changed it, but you go UPS zone chart. I like to type that in. It worked earlier. UPS zones and rates for the 48 contiguous states. I don't think this changes very often, but it doesn't hurt to update it. Freight Rate Importer will handle it. Download your zone charts, your origin zip code. So you go out here and you go, well, let's see, I'm shipping from 60187. That's Wheaton, Illinois here. And I hit download. And you're going to see, look at it, it's called it 600.xls. So really what they've gone and said here is that, well, anything starting with 60 is going to be this zone chart. So as long as you typed your zip code in correctly here, you're going to get the right zone chart. So I'm going to go out here, I'm going to put it in my demo folder, and I'm going to overwrite my old one here because there's something you got to do. Now that I've overwritten that, I'm going to open it. And we talk about this in the memo as well. I've just downloaded that file. There it is. We have to clean it up. So you open it. You open it in Excel. Enable your editing. And here's it's very simple. I feel like I'm on a cooking show and showing you how to clean a tenderloin. Clean up the top. Delete all those. I just want a nice clean header here. I really do feel like a cooking show. There's my header. And I got to go back down here to the very bottom and delete all of this stuff that we don't support. So all that comes off and delete. I now have a nice clean zone table. You have to do this. We can't do it for you because as you saw, it's based on where you're located. I'm going to save that, and I got to close out of Excel. Back to our product. Update US and Canada zones. I hit that. First thing is, well, what's my shipping method? Well, you would go through one by one for each of your shipping method. And remember, I'm in my US and Canada one. So I'm going to go, here's my UPS ground. I'm going to leave my country blank. I don't need to fill in a description. I'm going to browse out to that file I just saved. There it is. Open it. Now, I'm bringing in UPS ground. My country is blank. I've opened that file. Notice there are different columns in that spreadsheet. So it says select the column for the shipment method. Ground, 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 ground. Import. 151 zones, go. All good. I'm going to go through each of these now. Second day. Now notice UPS has different zones for second day air and second day AM. Most of our clients don't ship second day AM. They use regular second day air, so I'm going to choose that. But notice it's different zones if you're doing second day air. So I'm going to go ahead and bring that in. I'm sorry, second day AM. Next, I'm going to go out here. I'm going to do my next day saver, if that's what you do. I'm going to go over here and choose next day saver, and I'm going to import it. So everything's going along really nice, right? But here I've got my Canada one, right? When we get to Canada, things are a little different. I don't have Canada on here, okay? I actually browse out to our international zones for this part. And I'm sorry it's goofy like this, but that's because of the way Canada ships and the US ships. It's very similar by postal code. So I'm going to go to my international zones, and I'm going to open that up. And now I'm going to go out here, and I'm going to, this is a little tricky right over here. I go over here and I say, give me my Canada zones. It has found my Canada zones. Now it gets even more fun. Canada is broken down by what state you are shipping from, what U.S. state. So I'm in Illinois, right? So there it is. I want this column. So for Canada, we go out here. We choose the one that has Illinois in it, and we hit import. So it's now brought in my Canada ones. I could repeat for the other ones as well. Okay? Well, just Canada is what I want to bring in there. So I'm done with the zones now. I've brought my zones in. Everything's good. Well, if you're shipping international, you want to do your country zones. So we're going to go to update our country zones. That's next. We're going to choose our expedited. There's two that we've got here, UPS expedited. I'm going to browse back out to my international zones. And now you can see it's already set on the international here, right? It's got the country. And now I need to just tell it that I'm doing worldwide expedited. So I would go down here and I would say expedited. Now, notice there's Western and Eastern U.S. You need to look up whether you're supposed to use the Western or Eastern U.S. zones. And you can go out there and you can do that as well here. Just I like to use Google on that, right? And this part I didn't test. So UPS expedited zones. Determine the zone. Hopefully I got the right one. So here we go, expedited, and let's see. Here's our state classifications. West is all these states. East is all these. So apparently we are east. So I'm back in Freight Rate Importer. It says, where are you getting it from? I say expedited, shipping from the Eastern U.S. import. It is brought in my international zones now. I would repeat the same thing for the express. And I'm going to go down here and I'm going to change it to express, right? Express is really weird. So I just want the regular express. For some reason, if you're shipping out of Miami, it's cheaper, or different zones. So I'm going to import that, and now I've got those done. So all set. I've got my zones all set up for UPS. Now it's time to bring in the freight tables. So we go down to the freight tables. We choose our shipment method. I'm going to go ground first. I'm going to browse out. Here are my UPS rates for 2017. I'm going to open that. Once again, I'm on ground. I now need to choose which tab on the spreadsheet. So I'm doing ground. There's the UPS ground. UPS ground, UPS ground. Great. We're all set. Import. Yes. And you just kind of go through, same sort of thing. You're going to click through, and here's my second day. I'm going to go over here. If you make a mistake, just go back and redo it. 2 seconds. It's bringing in all of these. and next day saver, and I can go ahead and just, like I said, just do all these fun ones, pulling the right spreadsheet here. They're all brought in. And I can even, if I was in the mood, go out here and bring in my expedited, and it's going to be on there as well. There it is, expedited. So I can bring in all of these. When you're done, watch what it does. It doesn't want you to forget the fuel surcharges. So it says update the fuel surcharges. Yes. If you remember, I don't remember actually what my fuel surcharges were for UPS. So UPS fuel surcharge. All right. Ground is 5.5, domestic air is 5.25, and international air is 7. Perfect. So domestic is 5.25, my second day. Ground is 5.5, next day saver, and my international would be 7. Save. That's it. You're ready to go. Everything has been brought into IMUS now. If you jump over to your orders tab, and you go to setup tables, and you go to freight by weight, you'll see they're all in here, and they all should have the right prices. Now, heads up, UPS has many, many, many different ways to calculate prices. The number this should match is what they gave you in the spreadsheet, or what we gave you. It's the same sort of number if you go to their website and calculate shipping, but if you go to their website and calculate shipping, it's going to ask you for the box size and all that. Obviously, IMUS isn't going to play that game. It's purely by weight. So these are very straightforward in terms of a core dollar amount. And I can tell you that if you have a daily pickup from UPS at your organization, your rates are probably a touch lower. And so what you can do is you can go right back into freight rate import, and you can adjust your fuel surcharges to get the rates closer to what your customers are actually paying. Or you can leave the rates a little bit higher if you need to. Okay, back. Yearly freight table updates. When it's time, January, you get those new rates from us, it is totally up to you whether you want to bring in new zones. Like I said, I have not seen them change a whole lot lately. You may want to download from UPS any new zones because they might have some. But I can go out here and I can go to my, normally what I would do is I would just go update freight tables. I'm going to jump on ground. I'm going to go out here and I'm going to pull up my UPS rates. I'm going to choose ground. This is all I would need to do across the board. Now remember, when you bring all of these in, when you're done, it's going to ask you fuel surcharges because you do want to reapply these fuel surcharges, and it will do that. So that's really all you need to do on a yearly basis once you've done the initial setup. And then finally, the monthly fuel surcharge update, fire up the product, hit the fuel surcharge, go out here and change it to whatever it might have gone to. You know, they really will change these as the price of gas changes. So our fuel, kerosene is what they'll tell you. And now it's updated. So that's all you really need to do from a monthly perspective. That is, you know, from a standpoint of that. Next, what do we got here? Any questions? So, yeah, one question. Is that still accurate? What's still accurate? Sorry, just saw the question. The zones east or west. That was the east or west zones is only for shipping to Canada, and I believe that is accurate because that's what I'm seeing on UPS's website. So I'm not sure it has changed at all since they're still providing them. So that should be the current ones. So we can do this. We can go west and east state classifications UPS. West and east state classifications UPS. Remember, this is only for shipping to Canada. Up here. No, so they have not changed it since, wow, 2006. Pretty impressive. So the west and east classifications have not changed, but you can go out here and check it in one of these other ones. If we find that different, I'll let you know, but I do not believe that has changed since 2006, since those are the only ones popping up. So, yes. I believe those are still accurate, and I have not seen them change. Any other questions? All right. Well, this is going to be on our website today, as Brittany said. So if you watch it and have any other questions on it, feel free to email us. Our sales contact info is there, and then there's support. So if you have anything like, hey, this isn't working or whatnot, let us know, and we'll get you, like I said, a new version. The product has not changed, but we have a new manual, as well as we made a couple tweaks to our zones, and we'll go from there. Oh, one more question. So residential surcharge, once again, there is no way, as I said before, there's no way for IMUS to support that. So what I would recommend, if you want to support residential, my strong recommendation is you would go out here, good question, and you would go to your ship table, ship method, and I might create something like this. I might go UPS, G&D, residential. So UPS ground, residential, and maybe this is going to be my commercial, so I might go here, UPS ground, commercial. And so what I would then do is I would jump into Freight Rate Importer. I would say update my freight tables. Actually, I've got to bring in the zones for that first, so I'm going to actually say finish. I've got to bring in my zone, and there's my residential zone, and that's going to match my existing zones that I downloaded early on. So it is matching my zones. I'm going to pull in from ground. So my ground residential has been imported. Zones are done. I now would go over to my freight tables. I would select the ground residential. I'm going to go over here and select the UPS rates for 2017. I'm going to choose ground as well. I'm going to import that. And now I'm going to finish. And when I finish, I'm going to make my ground residential a higher rate than my ground commercial. So this is a trick that you can do to make IMUS realize the difference between a residential address and a commercial address. Now, if you're using an online store, it will be up to the individual to choose the proper ship method. But if they do this, the ground residential will be 3 percentage points higher than the ground commercial. So that's a quick way to get around the residential side of things. As noted, what you would do is, I would create the ship methods to say, just like this, you might want to do something like this, UPS ground commercial address, and then you might do commercial ground residential address. And if you find that people are not choosing the proper freight method, they're choosing commercial because it's cheaper. You know, I've seen that before on other sites where they're going and they're saying, is this a residential address? And you could go ahead and lie and say no, because I know residential is always more. So the, you know, if you find you're shipping to a lot of residential and people are not being honest about it, then you can crank up the commercial ones to cover for it. Otherwise, you really just need to tell, and people need to choose whether it's commercial or residential. There's IMUS just doesn't support the idea of a residential address at this time, so unfortunately. But that's an interesting workaround there. All right, once again, there's our info. Feel free to email us at either of those two. Thank you so much for your time. And once again, we'll throw this up on the website here in about an hour. Thanks again.